You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy, and with me today, full house, we have Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Hello there, Mark. How are you?
Good morning, Amy. Lovely to see your face. Lovely to have a full house, full team today.
So no new Star Trek, but we get Star Trek on Thursday, Lower Decks. Are you excited for that?
So excited. Lower Decks is a blast. And this year, oh my lord. So last year we went to Deep Space Nine. This year, I've been told by a little bird, we're going on to the Voyager. So it's going to be great.
Yes. Christos, hello. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning. How are you, Miss Amy?
Doing great.
Me too.
Good. And Kelvin.
Hi, Amy. Hi, guys. How's everyone doing?
We're doing great.
From Las Vegas to Boston, USA to Canada and South America, from the United Kingdom to South Africa, from Russia to Australia, the South Pacific and beyond. This is All Good World.
Each episode, we highlight a different location around the globe where this podcast has reached. Today's episode, we'd love to give a special shout out to Croatia. Awesome Croatia is listening. So the area known as Croatia today was inhabited throughout the prehistoric period. Neanderthal fossils dating to the Middle Paleolithic period were unearthed in northern Croatia. So that's kind of cool. It's like some of the first human civilizations were found there, and we have listeners there. So that's exciting.
That is very exciting. And sometimes I'm like, really? We have listeners in Croatia? That's just pretty cool.
It's way cool.
Mind-boggling.
Yes. Well, listeners, today we are going to get possessed and go to our series. This will be part 5, and we are going to cover a very fun episode, Lower Decks, Strange Energies. This is to, because we're getting a new season, we thought we'd talk Lower Decks. And it really is funny how our podcast timing really works into real life. I'm just saying. Previous episodes that we've covered to talk about being possessed was Voyager Warlord, TNG Clues and Power Play, and Deep Space Nine The Assignment. So, Christos, would you like to give us a synopsis of Strange Energies?
Are you gonna? I'm gonna give you my okay, I just watched this last night, and this is what how I'm gonna paraphrase it. But
Yay.
Once again, we are on a second contact mission, following up with I can't even remember the name of the aliens of the week, but
Armagosians or something, Argosians, something
right.
like that.
But the more important part about this is it's kind of kicking off with a big recap of last year, in that it was revealed at the end of last season that Mariner and Captain are daughter and mother and daughter, however you want to say that, and they're trying to work together more, and that's causing a lot of strife between Ransom, and that becomes like the center of this episode. And so Mariner's getting all this special treatment, including what she wants to do is go down to the planet and do some cleanup, help the place look pretty, put a little shine on the place, which leads to all of this week's episode's issues. So Mariner is cleaning up this one building, and then she reveals this mural and a shrine, and the shrine gets activated by the sun, and then the sun gives Ransom special godlike powers. And it's kind of feeding, I think, off emotions is the way it's all working, and it turns Ransom into this big god, and he just keeps getting more powerful with everything they do. And it basically chaos ensues without, getting all the way into how it all ends. So I think that's the crazy Christos paraphrase of what happened, and sets up a lot of our discussion.
Yes, it does. Okay, so me and my questions, I just need some understanding clarifications. Who is Gary Mitchell again, and why was it referenced?
Oh Lord.
I
Oh, yeah.
know.
So Gary Mitchell, he was in the original series, and it was the second pilot episode, and it was him and this doctor lady. I think she was a doctor. That they were both.
Dr. Jenner.
Oh, yeah, they both got their eyes started glowing, and they got like superhuman powers. Yeah, and then Gary tried to take over the ship.
Yeah, they
And-
go to like to the galactic barrier, and the galactic barrier kind of hits the ship with this massive energy wave, and the Enterprise is really damaged. And then the two people at the helm, the Doctor and the Gary Mitchell, get these similar godlike powers, which is why it ties into the episode.
So
Christos,
is Gary Mitchell?
you were just explaining to me a TOS episode. Now this is one for the record books. Good for you. Nicely done. I'm impressed.
So is Gary Mitchell a crew member?
Of the TOS Enterprise, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was a doctor, the ship psychiatrist, I believe. Miss, basically they're Deanna Troy.
Oh. Huh. Okay. And okay, now my second question is, did the people not know of the strange energies, or did they know about it and let the build up get so great that it covered to hide the energies? Like, it just was weird that Mariner discovered this when it's on their planet and it's their historical monument.
Yeah, but they've never cleaned it. You know.
Well, there had to have been a time when it was cleaned.
But I will go, like, when they uncover the mural, people are like shocked to see the mural, and they're like, "Oh wow, look at that!" So, I don't know, archaeologically speaking, people here on Earth, we go dig up a tomb that's been 2,000 years buried. What do we find? We go, we basically we have this whole archaeological thing, right, where we just go make discoveries about things that we don't know about ourselves because time has forgotten it. So, has time forgotten or not? I think that's left up to the audience.
Okay. I'll go along on that journey with you. All right. Okay, so this episode, I think, really encapsulates our Possessed series. Obviously, Ransom, but I dare say Tendi as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's just talk about all the things Ransom was doing once he got affected. He did some pretty crazy things. Was him trying to eat the ship, was that sort of in reference to the green hand?
Yes.
And is that in the same episode?
No.
Oh, so that's a different reference.
Yes.
Point of order, that is this year's Hallmark ornament, and my mom already sent it to me.
Oh,
It's
my
the Enterprise, the hand grabbing the Enterprise. It literally just happened this week, so that's so crazy that you
my
brought that
gosh.
up, Amy. It's all such
Yeah.
a small Trek world.
And that popped up on my watch list last night while I was going to bed. I obviously, like, on the TOS episodes, I sort of fall asleep watching them, and that was the one that
Me
one
too.
of the ones that popped up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Different type of falling asleep, but that's all right.
All right. So what was Ransom doing?
Oh, I think he's just basically acting out. It's like your inner child, right? Or whatever. Like everything that you're feeling is now being tapped into with this power. Kind of like I was saying in the recap. So he's upset with the captain. He's jealous of Mariner. He wants to be the real number one, but he feels like Mariner's kind of replaced him as number one. And it's almost like a child being mad and acting out. And that's how I would describe the things that he's doing.
I thought it was real funny when he started turning the planet into his idea of a utopia by putting all the gym equipment.
Well, he's like turning people into stuff. At one point, he decapitates his head, and his head just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that's a metaphor for, life in general, or hubris. like I'm a god and I've got a big head. I mean, literally, it is so on the nose. It's not even funny, and it's very funny, I should say, but it's very in your face, exactly what's happening. Yeah, he's just, like I said, he's acting out. He's mad at the Cerritos, but he wants everything to be okay. So it's almost like when a kid acts out at the grocery store and they're acting out, but as soon as they get what they want, they calm right down.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's how I was taking what was happening there.
Yeah. So these strange energies, so he was able to levitate, decapitate, and make others emulate. I'm pretty impressed that I rhymed all three of those, listeners. So, and we're to believe that all of this power came because he's using his brain. Is that what the writers are trying to say? Like, it's a power that unlocks your brain, and this is why we can do all this extravagant stuff?
Well, I think the electricity that came from the sky and shot into the orb thing, I mean, obviously, like, some of the things he was doing was because of the powers in his mind, but I also think he got the godlike powers themselves from whatever that orb of prophecy was. That wasn't really the orb of prophecy.
And in true lower deck style, it is tapping into things we've seen over and over and over again in Star Trek. I mean, episodes like with Ascension type come to mind. We see transfigurations, the Ninth Degree with Barclay, where he suddenly gets tapped with something and he keeps getting smarter and smarter and doing more things with his mind. So this is definitely a trope in Star Trek, and it's exactly why Lower Decks, I think, is making fun of it.
Yeah.
Or making fun of it, and then, of course, Where No Man Has Gone Before, another direct reference to where we've seen this happen before.
Right. Okay. And only because I'm TNG, I kept thinking and envisioning Barclay when he was hooked up to the computer in TNG,
Perfect.
But that's a totally different thing.
Well, the catalyst is different, but it's the same idea.
Oh, right. Yeah. Getting this godlike power. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay. All right. Well, Mark, Christos, if you were hit by strange energies and were drunk with power, what would you be doing?
Mark, you go first.
Oh man, that'd be so scary though. Imagine imagine getting these powers and all of a sudden you're getting like smarter and smarter. Like it could control people. I mean, in theory, it sounds like really fun, but if it was actually happening, that would be scary because you wouldn't know like if friends were really your friends or if it was because you were controlling them. If you could read minds, maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to read what's in people's minds. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks I would get drunk with power and go crazy and have a good time, but then part of me thinks, oh god, I'd probably actually in reality like run to the hills and avoid humans like in a log cabin like Ted Kaczynski. I don't know. What about you, Christos?
No. This is where I start solving all the world's problems. I take care of the dictators and all the assholes in power who are abusing power. This is how I make sure the homeless get fed. This is how I make sure we get to our utopia, because you got to use the power for good. You can still get all the things you want for yourself, but take care of everybody else. So it'd be something along the lines of that,
But I wonder if these powers that were given, I mean, and look at the examples, Barclay, Gary Mitchell, even like Charlie X, like getting this power, and it seems to focus on a problem, and then you're going to just act it out. Sort of like what you were talking, Christos, of a temper tantrum, And so it's like, okay, if this power was to focus on a little tiny nitpick that you have a disagreement with someone and then expand that, that might be dangerous.
Every example we've had throughout Star Trek anyway, it's never ended well. So kudos to you, Christos, if you can hang on to the power and not let it corrupt you and have you go crazy. But I'm going with the assumption that I would definitely go crazy, so I would have to hide in the woods.
I know it'd be interesting to say, like, yeah, if it did hit something that I have a beef with, and I don't, who knows where that would go. Interesting enough, like, okay, so Ransom gets hit, right, because he's saving Mariner.
Right.
What if Mariner had got hit? I mean, think of all the repressed issues that she has and how that would have blown up with her having the godlike powers. I mean, we just got a snapshot of that in the opening holodeck scene of her trying to deal with all her issues. So imagine, like, with her mommy issues and all that stuff, if that had how the episode had acted out and not Ransom.
Yeah, I mean, that was just Ransom being irritated at Captain Freeman. If we had Mariner, that poor ship wouldn't it would be drifted too.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking at the beginning about there being multiple levels of this sort of possession / strange energies thing happening, and I'm thinking a little bit about with Rutherford also. You mentioned Tendi, but I was thinking Rutherford because he had just gone through that experience of essentially getting rebooted, and he's not really knowing what's going on with his head and trying to figure things out and get back to normal. But like, he's been changed by this thing outside of his control. And is this the same Rutherford that we know? And that's what Tendy's trying to figure out. Is this the same guy, or is it somebody completely different that's been changed? So the fact that he doesn't or likes pears at the beginning, that's the tell right there.
Yeah.
It reminds me of in Picard. I just watched that episode of Picard where it was season 3 where they were trying to figure out if somebody was a shapeshifter, and they asked those questions, right? And she was like, but you're not supposed to like pears.
I mean, and how great is it that you have a friend who notices the small details and it's like, hey, what's wrong? You know, that they notice that, pay attention to the small details. That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Although I will say I did not like the Tendi storyline. I did not like seeing her so obsessed and violating medical ethics and, doing things that are paramount to. I mean, technically she should have been relieved of duty and court-martialed for the things she was doing. But it's lower deck, so I know that's how it goes. But if you get serious about it, it's like, I didn't like that kind of obsessive behavior. If somebody were doing that to me, I'd have a real problem with it. So I just didn't, that part of the episode, the B story, if you call it that, didn't hit well with me because it kind of made me a little uncomfortable. Seeing her her obsession was uncomfortable.
Right, which is why I'm sort of including her as being possessed, because she is so obsessed with curing Rutherford. Yeah, like that synthetic memory degradation, SMD. And so she's making up this thing so that she can try and cure or save him. And it did go a little far. I mean, that electro what was that? Shock therapy? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I said, it goes a little far. But I think you're absolutely right, Amy. Like, it was, the writers did this as a foil to the main plot to show obsession without having it be brought on by, a strange energies type of situation. This is just how our minds can go crazy and make us do crazy things. And that's what happens to Tendi in this episode.
And it's interesting because I don't know. I think in season 1, I was like, is Tendi and Rutherford, are they gonna, develop relationships at this point in the series? And so then to have her being so obsessed with him, it was like, oh, she likes Rutherford more because here he's going on this date with another girl, and it seems like she's getting jealous.
Yeah.
And so it sort of does that little twist of will they, won't they? But then thankfully, at the end, she's just afraid that, if he changed his mind there, that maybe he would change his mind and not be her friend. So I love that they keep it on that friendship level between those two.
Yeah, she's probably had a lot of issues as far as in the past, going through Starfleet Academy and whatnot, of people judging her because isn't she one of the first Orions in Starfleet, you know? And so they probably assume that she's going to swindle or cheat them or steal their stuff or whatever because she's an Orion. So she gets prejudged a lot. And here's this one person that she's met that is not prejudging and just wants to be her friend because she's her. Yeah.
Right.
And then how gracious is he? I do need to give kudos to Rutherford for understanding where she was coming from, not being upset and saying, "Oh, you solved a problem by using science. I would do the same thing." Like, I love that he is so gracious to Tendi.
Yes, yeah. And to your point too, I mean, I they always tease this will they or won't they with these two, but it always ends up just being platonic. And I like that. I do not want them to be a couple. I like them just being friends. Doesn't always have to lead to romance, you know?
Exactly. Yes.
And so them resisting that temptation, at least through the first 3 seasons, has been great.
So what's something that you have become obsessed with, so much so that it almost felt like a possession, like when you took things just a little too far?
Star Trek. I'll be a little direct there.
So I get a little obsessed with making plans. Well, I'm going to say earlier in my life, in my 20s and 30s, I did a lot of traveling and I would love to make my own itinerary and it would just be planned. This is where we're going. This is how long it's going to take. Like seriously,
Oh, that sounds
planning
awful.
things out.
Whoa.
And I loved it and people would enjoy it because I did all the work and, you know, this is what we're going to do, what we're going to see. So my last European trip in 2006. Yes, 2006. I just graduated with my master's and gave myself a European vacation for 3 weeks. Planned out everything, like training here, where we're staying, everything planned almost to the minute. And it was so wonderful. But then after,
No.
oops, my friends were like, that was a little too planned. Can you ease up on that? And I was like, really? It never dawned on me, but I was so obsessed with it that I was almost missing out. Like, okay, we've got to do this next instead of enjoying the moment.
Yeah, spontaneity is the thing, right?
And so after that trip in 2006, I had to pull things back and I was like, okay, let's not be so possessed that I'm planning every minute. Let's learn to live in the moment and enjoy it. So I'm now way more relaxed. I think both of you guys have traveled with me and it's like, all right, let's do some things. And if we don't, I'm with the people that I care about. So it doesn't matter.
I would almost say mine would be along the same lines, Amy. I can be a little OCD when it comes to planning, when it comes to punctuality, when it comes to something starting at 10, we need to be there at 10. It's like, no, even just like yesterday, I went to a pool party and it was like, I was kind of stressing at my morning. I was like, oh, it starts at 12 and I'm trying to get to the gym and I'm trying to do this. And it's like, you know what? If I get there at 12:30, it's okay. It's fine. It's like a 5-hour party. Don't have to be there at the beginning. In fact, it's not even cool to be there at the beginning.
Right.
The fact that you need to be like, stop and check yourself in with that. So, and then likewise, friends will, I get it like maybe a change in me is I used to be that planner guy. In fact, you know, people come to me still and I'm like, hey, Christos, what are we doing? Where are we going? You know, where's dinner? You know, like even that kind of stuff. Like, why do I have to figure all this crap out, guys? You know, like, you know, I'm turned this curve where it's like, no, I don't want the control. I don't want the, you know, just like you guys pick something for dinner. You guys are big boys. You can figure out there's a vegan option for Christos and, you know, and then know that it's a good place for us to go to. It's not science, you know? And so that's, I noticed in my mid 40s here, a change of me just wanting to let go of a lot of that OCD, which is a good thing, I think.
Yes. And I did it a lot with like my teacher friends, and now I'm, one of the older ones. And it's so cute because I'll see people that, are sort of like us. It's like, all right, let's do this. Let's meet here, da 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 da, and plan it all out. And I'm like, you know what? You do you. I'm happy to follow now in my wiser years. What about you, Mark?
I think when it comes to like art things, so either like drawing or painting or something, I get a little obsessive and then I just focus on it and then I just ignore other things while I'm working on it. Or like when I'm editing for the podcast, for example, like I spend a lot of time really like trying to edit out like ums and ahs and awkward pauses and all this stuff. And especially at the beginning when I first started, was really obsessive about it, like really obsessive, would spend forever on it. And I think around the time where I started doing the Cinema Z, and I was with people that had never podcasted before, and there was way so many ums and ahs and pauses, and the discussion was a lot longer, so we'd go like run 2 hours, and I'd have to edit that down. At some point, I just had to throw in the towel and accept defeat. Like, you know what? All right, I can take out some of them, but some are just going to stay because I can't work on this for, 2 weeks of editing. Like, I got to streamline this a little bit. And I think that was helpful because now when I go and edit, when I edited this last time, I was a little bit speedier and less focused on making it absolutely shiny and perfect because you know what? Most people probably won't notice.
Right.
Very good, Mark. I'm very proud of you for that. We've talked about this. I am
Yes,
not
we
going to
have.
sit there. I am not going to sit there. If it takes me more than 2 hours to edit this podcast, it is too long. And it's kind of also back to the OCD thing, realizing that imperfections and things not being perfect are just a way of life. I'm always reminded by this like early 90s Barbra Streisand concert where she's talking about singing and not having to sound just like the record and letting the variations come in and letting it be a little different and exploring singing it a different way because, that is fun too. And it doesn't have to, I can listen to the record at home, right? I want to hear those inflections. I mean, I want it to sound good, don't get me wrong, but it's okay if it's a little different.
Oh, I love it when they reinterpret stuff all the time. There's my favorite band is Placebo, and they did a live MTV Unplugged a few years ago. And every one of the songs they chose, they did that. He's reinterpreted. Now they sound the same, like vocally as they did, 15, 20 years ago, actually, but they still went ahead and like, okay, we're going to slow this one down. We're going to speed this one up. We're going to make this one a little more techno. And it was like hearing them again for the first time because it was interpreted in a different way. And I love that.
Yeah, I think it's like you were saying, those variations that make it unique. And that we celebrate here in Star Trek. Oh.
Infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Yeah. And perfection is boring.
It is. And it's overrated.
Yeah.
And hyper planning is boring.
I mean, a loose outline. I like a loose outline, Amy. Like these are ideas of things we could do, but we don't have to do them all, or we don't have to do any of them. But it's good to have a little bit of a plan. You don't have to be like the clipboard of fun. I'm thinking of like Full House. They used to make fun of. Got little childhood flashbacks there, but they used to make fun of what's his face, Bob Saget's character, for being like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you guys have any assimilations or regenerations?
Kind of an overall, not even necessarily about the episode, but kind of a little bit of a deep cut here is I think Strange New Worlds doing those old scientists just a month ago or so, 5-6 weeks, whatever it's been now, was so well placed because what it did for me was get me excited about Lower Decks again, to the point where I've kind of been just randomly rewatching Lower Decks episodes, including, and then so it's really fun to have this one come up this week and talk more Lower Decks as we're getting 2 new episodes in 5 days or so. So that's my like just awesome like assimilation is like kudos to Strange New Worlds for bringing us back Lower Decks and getting us super excited about Lower Decks again.
Agreed. You know, it was as I was watching, I totally forgot sort of the storyline. Ransom's like, he won't choose a number for his subspace communication because this planet really values numbers, which I do as a former math teacher. And I currently have a very similar dilemma because I have been wanting to get a tattoo and I've been thinking, okay, what do I love forever that I would want on my body? And that would be math and Star Trek. So I've been, toying with some ideas of what to do. And I came up with an idea. I want to have numbers in Vulcan on my as a tattoo. So then I'm like, all right, what's the number? Is it going to be 3.14? Because everyone knows pi. Like that's like the most famous math number there is. But to me, like that signifies geometry, and I'm more of an algebra girl. And so I'm going like, what's going to be a good algebraic number? I know I've thought of phi, and that's a really good one. But anyways, I'm just going back and forth because this number has to be important. So I totally related to that part of the story. Chris.
So I can throw you a suggestion there. Is
Okay.
that maybe you should go back to like the Traveler episodes and the Szynski's warp field equations and things like that. See if that's ever been captured on a screen or something. Because then it would be math, it would be algebra, it would be warp field, it would be Star Trek, and it would be TNG.
Yes. Okay.
I'm shocked that you didn't think of the 1010011 whatever, the binars,
Yeah.
like the title of that episode.
Then
is
you'll
just
never
awesome.
have to. Then you can always do this. Be like, okay, like whenever you get
episode
reference
1
on.
0.
Like,
Yeah.
Because I know I can't say it. You know what I mean? And I know people who do have it memorized. And I'm
I
like,
do.
kudos to you.
11001000.
Wasn't I close? I was close.
But you just say 11001, and like people just know what you're talking about.
Yep,
So it's
exactly.
no problem.
That is a good suggestion. Okay. All right. See, listeners, let me know if you have any other smart ideas for my tattoo.
As far as the assimilation regeneration, I was trying to think while you guys were talking, and I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, again, I agree with you guys. Having it be episodic is wonderful. I think it's a good, I guess, bookend with Strange New Worlds. Like the two shows complement each other really well. But then regeneration, yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Tendi was a little too nutty in this one. And so if I was to do anything to change this episode, I would make her a little less psychotic. That's my regeneration.
Yeah, I would say just in general, kind of like to Mark's point, I already mentioned my dislike of the Tendi storyline, a little uncomfortable. And even the Ransom one goes a little too far. In 30 episodes of Lower Decks, it's not my favorite. I don't think this is one I just throw on because I think it just, even for Lower Decks, it's a little much. I don't know. It's kind of but it's still fun. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed rewatching it last night, but it's still like, it's not a comfort episode that I'm just throwing on because I want to chill.
I was just thinking, one of the reasons why it's not my super favorite is because there's no Boimler. And I'm like, okay, season 2, episode 1, there's no Boimler. And with Strange New Worlds, there was hardly any Pike in it. So I'm like, interesting.
Yeah. You only see Boimler like for 2 minutes at the end with Riker. Yeah. And it's nice that we have Riker in this episode. I guess we didn't even mention that. So that's awesome. But yeah, he's definitely missing. And then that kind of tells you, right, that it is a really good ensemble cast that you need them all to make it fit. I don't know, make it jive. So I'm going to take the liberty of jump into trivia because there's another missing character from this episode. So speaking of missing characters, and Shax does not appear because if we're going through the timeline, he's dead right now and has not just mysteriously reappeared back on the ship in some story that we don't get to know as the audience because only the bridge crew knows about it in true TNG fashion.
Yes.
But but yeah, there's no Shax in this episode as well. So there's another missing key character here.
Right. And according to Paramount Plus, this is happening 3 months after No Small Parts, the season 1 finale.
In Mariner's holo program, the holographic Boimler that we see says the Cardassians keep showing him lights. This is a reference to TNG's Chain of Command Part 2, when Gul Madred tortured Captain Jean-Luc Picard by repeatedly showing him 4 lights and telling him that they were in fact 5. When Picard refused to submit, he was tortured by a small device implanted in his chest that allowed Madrid to inflict pain in any part of Picard's body. There are 4 lights!
Oh, I mean, it's weird that they're making fun of that because that is an
So dark.
emotionally wrought, very dark part of TNG. And here they are, help me, they're showing me lights. That's all he has to say. And you totally get it. And you laugh and you're like, oh, that's not funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I play the Lower Decks mobile game, and that is one of the situations on the holodeck is the 4 lights scene.
Oh, Lord.
So it's like they're still going at it.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is it's kind of a ballsy going after such a prolific episode that even for Amnesty International is a big episode.
Right. Well, this episode features references to, as well as an image of Gary Mitchell from the second Star Trek original series pilot, where no one has gone before. T'Ana even drops a boulder on Ransom, similar to what Captain Kirk did to Mitchell to defeat him. I was wondering where the boulder thing came in. Oh, funny. Yeah, because didn't Mariner ask T'Ana how Mitchell was stopped, and that's when T'Ana got the boulder. Okay.
Yeah. Mark had mentioned it, and you just did too. This was the original. This is the second pilot filmed, but it was Where No Man Gone Before was the 3rd episode aired.
Yes.
So, just a little.
Very good. More trivia
little,
on our trivia.
More fun fact there. The hologram Miranda-class ship Mariner uses to escape from the time-appropriate bridge style akin to what we see in the Wrath of Khan or Search for Spock. Great attention to detail. I also, the bridge style was correct, but I noticed the nacelles were very TNG. They had the blue and the red versus so it was a more updated outside, but very traditional inside.
Maybe it was a refit. Mariner, Tendi, and Rutherford talk about how Rutherford has a date with Ensign Barnes before Mariner pauses and says, wait, that sounds familiar. It should be, as the group shared the exact same dialogue about the same person in the series premiere.
I did not know that, and that's funny.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that, like it's showing Tendi that he's different. Not, it's like, hey, you've done this before, but it's,
So, Nightingale Women poem. I went down this rabbit hole and I was so glad I did. So this is the poem that Lieutenant Commander Stevens reads to Ransom as he's recovering in sickbay. He opens up this book, and this poem is supposed to be highly sensual, sexual, like the most romantic of poems ever written. So this is a poem written by Gene Roddenberry, which is a love letter from a pilot to his plane. And the poem reads this: my love has wings, slender feathered things, with grace in upswept curve and tapered tip. So that is the poem that Roddenberry wrote. It's yes, very Roddenberry. I will just say that. But as we were talking about Where No One Has Gone Before, Gary Mitchell quotes this poem. So we have that. And, which I did not know, my love has wings, was in the Deep Space Nine Little Green Men, where it's inscribed underneath a picture of Rita Hayworth.
Very,
How cool
very,
is that?
Wow.
very, very deep cut. I mean, and you also know Roddenberry wrote the novelization of the motion picture, which also is very,
Mm.
very sensual in
Mhm.
places.
They must have had a very healthy relationship, him and Majel Barrett.
Well,
Among others. All right, guys. Well, let's get to our final thoughts of Strange Energies. Mark, let's start with you.
I think Christos was it? Yeah, I think you said earlier that it wasn't on your list really of a lot of the rewatches of Lower Decks. Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Not really like up on my rewatch list, but it was fun going back and checking it out. And I don't think that I have met a Lower Decks episode that I didn't enjoy. They're great. They're just fun to pop on like Skittles.
even the bird
Different
episode
flavors of
with
candy.
even
Huh?
the bird episode with Peter Hamper.
No.
Damn
Can't be
it.
that one.
Correction. I blocked that one out. I pretend
Exactly.
it didn't happen.
It's like
But yeah,
it's like one
writers,
of those
if you
failed
hear this,
spin-offs.
if you're listening, any of the creators or writers, yeah, just please don't do that again. But aside from that, yeah, the show's wonderful. And I really enjoyed the rewatch and cannot wait for season 4. Lower Decks.
Yeah, right, Mark. You know, we only get 10 episodes a year. You can't blow them on those kind of stupid ones. I mean, if you had 26 like back in the day, we get some of the crazy TNG episodes that we used to get, and that's okay. But with 10 episodes, you can't be jumping the shark like that. Yeah, I think I kind of said it earlier. It's not my favorite. It's not bad. It's definitely I can watch it, but it's not one I cringe at. But it's not my favorite. But yeah, but it was still kind of good to dive deep this week into it.
Yeah. Watching this episode again, I think, and especially in preparing for a podcast where we're trying to, find what are we getting out of it. Like both of them, Tendi and Ransom, they're basically having a temper tantrum and taking things to the extreme because they aren't either they're unwilling or they're unable to right now recognize what the problem is and why are they having this little temper tantrum. And temper tantrums seem to happen a lot in Star Trek. What's that season, Discovery? Season 3 with, what's his name?
That caused the burn.
Yes.
Because he had a freak out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it's just a good reminder that, you need to be able to face and have these hard conversations with people that you might be having difficulties with. If more people had adult conversations and, thought more logically or tried to science things out, it would be so much better. And we wouldn't have this major ego and power play and, I'm a god and da, 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 da. Of course, taken to the extreme in Lower Decks, but the idea is there. So I'm really glad that we rewatched this to discuss it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's funny. You can like watch an episode and be like, but still have a really good, healthy discussion about it. Exactly. And I'm just amazed that I was able to school Mark a little bit on TOS. That's gives me all the feels. Just, I'm not, Mark, I am going to go one step further and reveal that I read the memory alpha on Where No Man Has Gone before we recorded today. So
cool.
There's my
extra prep.
There's my revelation for you. So
there's the cliff notes.
I've seen the episode, so
Yeah.
it was just a good reminder.
So have I, but I obviously don't remember it. And you guys will always school me on TOS, and I'm very grateful for that. What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev? A Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Mark, what are we going to be discussing next week?
Oh, we got some Amy's homework to do. We have the TNG episode Genesis, which Christos will remember was the episode directed by Gates McFadden, the only episode directed by Gates McFadden, and featured that really haunting images of Deanna Troi in the bathtub with all of her, costume on and everything, and it was so creepy. Everybody sort of devolved into, what their species was originally, and Worf was like chasing people around the ship and trying to kill people, and yeah, fun episode.
It's because he wanted to get to Deanna.
Well, that's right. He was mating season.
Yes.
Little fun fact: that's actually only the second episode ever directed by a woman.
Oh,
so almost 300 episodes had happened at that point in time, and it was only the second. So I am actually in Palm Springs next week, but I'm going to make every effort to record this episode on Sunday morning, even though I'll be phoning in from a hotel room, but I'll do my best to be there, because how could I miss such an important Gates McFadden / we'll call it a Gates McFadden episode, not so much a Beverly episode.
Yeah. Well, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode, and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet X your thoughts. It's so stupid. At All Good Pod. Please follow the network on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We have also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. So, Mark, where can people find you when you get your head floating up into space and you look down on us mere humans?
Oh, you can find me calling Amy. That's usually what I'm doing when my head and my consciousness is floating above the planet.
Yes.
I always call you first. When I'm not doing that, you can find me in the Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You can find me on Blue Sky at MW207. And I have another show on the network. It is called Cinema Z, that I host with my friends Matt and Laz. And we have a hoot discussing some of our favorite films. We replay some scenes, act them out, and have all-around ridiculousness while we have some cocktails. And Christos, where can people find you when you are not chasing your friends around with a hypo spray, trying to make sure that they're still your friends and they haven't changed?
That's good. You can find me on Facebook in the BQN Collective. You can find me on X, Twitter, or whatever we're calling it, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Greek Geek SD. I'm pretty sure my handle is the same on all of those. I tried to streamline that. You can also find me here on the network hosting What's the T-Bev, where actually we are coming back here in a few weeks with some returning guests and some alternate formats from week to week. So it won't always be a getting to know you week. Or I've had a lot of interest from guests wanting to return and talk more Trek. So we're going to do more of that. And Amy, where can people find you when Dr. Ta'ana is not dropping rocks on you?
Well, when I'm not having that happen, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Union Federation, which talks about the new Star Treks coming out. I am on Twitter/X at Miss Amy Nelson. But my favorite place in the BQN Collective, our Facebook group. Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and a written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN.
At this time, we'd like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and as always, to Mark White for our artwork each and every week.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
Adios! All good things.
Yes, between conventions and summer vacations getting over.
You're
Surprising it's
listening
Labor Day
to
weekend and we're...
BQN.
Oh.
Assimilate the audio.
Oh my god, Amy, you sound like the computer's voice.
Wow.
Anybody ever tell you that before?
I can't... Okay, they changed the button, so I can never tell if it's checked or not on that loop. Okay. All right.
They did change that loop.
Yeah. It's very unclear now. See, now it's on, now it's off. Okay.
Yeah, I know. That's me messing with it, trying to also figure that out.
Right.
You sound so far away, Kelvin.
Not well, it seems.
He's using the Midas array
I
to
am
talk to us
thousands of
today, so you're
miles
going to have to excuse.
In fact.
The lag time is real. But yes, we are going through some kind of a subspace relay that is malfunctioning. That's all.
We'll call it the Midas array today.